The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I am Raygan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by two fantastic co-hosts.
Laura Nash.
Nate Heininger.
And this week we are talking about South Scrimshaw, Part 1. South Scrimshaw is one of the weirdest. I think calling this a visual novel is like really just not correct and yet
stretching the boundary.
It's a really interesting art thing that is
it's released on Steam.
Yes, this is a thing released on Steam.
Yes, this is a beautiful thing released on Steam that we are going to talk about classification, but we should talk about what it is before we try to classify it. You want to try that, Raygan?
Yeah, South Scrimshaw is this incredible piece of artistic work. I think we keep circling the word game because we had a conversation before we hit record. We're going to come to that.
Yes.
I think it's a game. I'm big. We'll have that conversation later. South Scrimshaw is nominally a visual novel. It's a visual story. They describe it as a visual story of a newborn whale in a vast alien ocean. It is a richly illustrated experimental visual novel written in the style of a nature documentary. So this is a free, let's write 100% free. You can go and download this for free on Steam or itch.io game that you can that will take you maybe about an hour to 2 hours to play through the entire thing.
One of the most shockingly consistent timestamps. I looked at it when I was about to play, and I think one of the three other review, it was like 86 minutes, 87 minutes, 89 minutes.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
It is super tight timestamps for y'all.
Which speaks to the fact that this is more or less entirely a like a linear experience. But what this is a someone who's primarily a visual artist, an extremely inventive illustrator and visual artist, who is using visual novel tools to create something that's more akin to a nature documentary. But it's this bizarre, contrafactual nature documentary about weird whales on an exoplanet somewhere out in deep space.
Yeah, it's a fake animal documentary, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I watched like for a person who's not super into the outdoors, I think I watch an abnormal amount of nature documentaries because I got a lot when I got my nice projector and they helped me go to bed. I'm like, yes, let the sounds of the giraffes like go just lull you to bed. But it's spot on. It's got the chapters right. It's got the voice and tone right. It's got the little anthropomorphic description of the playful spirit of the cub is doing. I'm like, yeah, it's got the tone perfectly down. Except it's all illustrated. The Steam site says there are 400 illustrations in this part 1 alone, and I totally checks out.
Yeah, and honestly, I would have guessed more. It's so rich with visual art. I think we can't get too much farther without talking about the art style, which is this incredible, beautiful, literally physical illustration. So there's a digital illustration element to this, but so much of it, especially the backgrounds and the color and texture, is so plainly paint on paper, either watercolor or other mediums. It has this incredibly analog feel to a lot of it that you don't often get with any digital game art style. This it feels like every frame of this feels like something that would hang on a gallery wall. It's an absolutely gorgeous, incredibly illustrated thing.
Yeah, ultimately, I think that's what this whole thing is for, is a way for you to absorb this art and have like a reason to be looking at it, if that makes sense. Like all of the inventiveness around the story, the creativeness around the story is really just serving the purpose of giving you really cool and interesting things to look at and to try to kind of comprehend and digest the story. But ultimately, it's like a really beautiful picture book because it's almost exclusively still images over and over and over.
Storybook or picture book is what I thought of too, because this watercolor ink uh, look and feel you get a beautiful picture, and it's still, and you get a voiceover, and then it advances to the next. It feels like you are just taking in the images. When you animate things, you must simplify them. You've got to do a lot of things for like foreground and background. Like there's got to be simplified bits. They don't have to simplify because they don't have to really animate it. And it doesn't mean that the personality doesn't come through. They might be 3 quick illustrations showing movement or playfulness or expression of these whales. But you don't have to make it easier to animate. So you get this really, really rich, detailed world. The world building in this is incredible. I think that's one of the strongest things about it.
Yeah, I think that's actually like part of the still image. I think serves multiple purposes. One, like you said, the artist didn't have to draw 800 versions of everything in order to create animation. They could just create really beautiful still images. And then with the way the narration works, your only real interactivity in this game is tapping the screen or clicking in order to get to the next bit of narration. But until you tap it, that still image is just sitting there, and it allows you to spend extra time with the art that you might find particularly interesting, or if you just want to move on, you can just tap and keep going. So you can really progress through this at your own pace, even though it sounds like all of us progress through it at the exact same pace.
I don't want folks to have the impression that this is a totally storyless, thing. Saying something is a nature documentary and that it's an artwork and it's like looking at gallery walls, all sort of puts way in the background the fact that this is the story of a young whale, and it has a story. It has a character to it. This is so this is taking place on a distant planet. I forget if they named the planet. There's the Kronos 7 project or something like that.
I believe the planet is Kronos 2.
Oh, okay. So Kronos 2 is a distant planet somewhere out in deep space. Humans have traveled there, but this is all presented in the form of a nature documentary presented back to human beings, presumably on Earth. So it's not something where there's like a huge human presence on this planet. It's mostly researchers looking at the wildlife, which resembles Earth wildlife on the surface, but has many weird differences. And we're focused on this young whale who's born in the very beginning of this game, a whale calf from a species called the Brillo whales, a obviously science fiction fictionalized whale species whose weirdest defining characteristic is that each whale, once they reach maturity, builds what the researchers call their garden on their body and back. Each whale looks different. They take different things like plants and animals and other symbiotic life forms and graft them onto their bodies. So some whales look like shaggy masses of plants. Others look like weird structures made of like crab chitin. They're just wild.
Covered in octopuses.
Yeah. Whales that are, every whale looks different, and it's because the whales each have their own basically each is their own weird ecosystem. And it's the story of this young whale calf who's born to an injured mother trying to make it back to where the whale's pod is, making their way across a dangerous stretch of ocean. And this is part 1, so there is a second part coming that's going to continue the story of this whale. But this does tell a complete story. So if you're worried because this says part 1 on it and we don't know when part 2 is coming, that doesn't really matter. I'm really excited to see more of it, but this is a complete thing.
And he said chapter 6, he's aiming for January.
Yes, I can't wait. Ooh. Yeah, there's 4 chapters in this.
Chapter 5, sorry.
Yeah, there's 4 chapters in this. The next chapter's coming out in January. So it wouldn't surprise me, it's such an incredible, apparently it took 3 years of work to create this. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's like basically a chapter a year.
He thinks it'll go faster because he has a story written, but and also because people like this and he's gotten support, so now he can take off time and he doesn't have to do it as a side project. He can take a month, get a bunch of stuff done. So I'm excited about that. If it doesn't come in January, nobody be mad, but that's his current goal.
I'm psyched. I'm glad that he has a date in mind and that this has apparently been something he's motivated to keep working on.
Yeah, I love that the story too. We did start this by talking about the art and whatnot, but it's a nature documentary, and it is one that is not without intrigue. There, think of any other animal focused nature documentary that you may have seen. We're talking about predator experience, mating experience, like survival and what they do to survive in this world. It's really compelling, and it's all fictitious, but and has this, it's hard to explain, it's such a perfect balance of weirdness that is based off of things that we know to be true. So it's all just like slightly adjacent to what we're used to on our planet. The coral reef system and structure that they go pretty deep into defining in this game is really cool and really strange and beautiful to look at, and not quite how coral reefs work here, but it works. It's really interesting.
And there's little teases of previous wars on Earth and why this project is looking at this whale in this level of detail. And there's another documentary about bugs elsewhere. Like there's little hints of this larger world. That's my favorite stuff in sci-fi.
Oh, I love that too. When you get a breakdown of the schematics of the underwater video and light drones that they're using to catch all this footage, and when you get this like bisection blueprint, they point out this is where the weapon systems were installed, but they've been removed in order to turn it into a peacetime research vehicle. And you're like, okay, there's a little bit there, just all these little bits and pieces about the world that really make it compelling.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil it, but one of my favorite one of those is the sea bun.
Oh my God, the C-Bun stuff was fantastic. Yes. That's something I really wanted to make sure folks are aware of. It does say this in the intro, but it's easy to miss, especially if you're, depending on what kind of screen you're playing this on. I started this game playing on Steam Deck, and it works fine on a Steam Deck, and it works fine if you're using a controller. But one of the only real branching elements in this game is that occasionally there will be words in the subtitles that are in a different color. And those are little opportunities to go deeper into a particular word. And if you click on that word, it pauses the main action of the nature documentary and goes on a little sidetrack for you about things like the sea bun or the schematics of the drones that they're using to observe the whales, etc. And I missed those completely when I played through the first two chapters, and I ended up playing the first and second chapters again in order to catch those, which was no big deal. I enjoyed doing that. I loved going back in and getting a little more detail, but it's easy to miss those if it's not a super high contrast difference between the colors.
It's
yellow
text
and
white.
And it's not possible to go backwards. No. So if you happen to accidentally click past a screen that has one of those highlights, you just got to play that chapter again. So if you want to get that little extra detail, which is a bit of a bummer in my opinion, I would have liked the option to go backwards a little bit. Mm-hmm. But they're great. They're worth trying to not miss them. They provide a lot of color outside of the context of the nature documentary. The sort of who's making this documentary and where and why comes in those little hidden elements.
The ramifications of space travel was one of my favorite ones, and how new alien biomes may impact the your digestive system and
those poor people
and how the military has managed that, and just the overall vibe around it. It's really funny and really clever writing.
I also this is available totally for free, which is an amazing thing. This artist has done a great gift to humanity putting this thing out for free, and you should download it and, say thank you to this guy. But one way that you can thank and support this guy is that on Steam, he also offers a 200-page digital art book as a $15 DLC. So I like this enough that I immediately, after finishing it, spent the $15 because I wanted a 4K image of Mama Whale to use as my desktop background or something. And yes, you do get that. But the book is also really good in that it gives you a little more context for how the artwork of this was created, and also like where this kind of falls in this artist's sort of journey as an artist. And one of the things that like so he tells you a little bit about his his past and the kinds of mediums he's worked in and the kinds of art that he's done. But something that helped contextualize this for me was that he talks about the project that he did before this that was most directly related to South Scrimshaw, which was he did a series of sort of print books or pamphlets around the 2010s called the Obscure Animal Compendium. And it was a series of books that were basically just like fake animals, kind of like what this is. I don't think they had the same context of like, these are animals from another planet. It was more just like, here are some obscure animals and weird facts about them. Things like I don't know, looked like elk that would eat from a bramble bush and then end up with the brambles embedded in their head, and they would end up with a head that was like a tangle of brambles, that kind of thing. Or porcupines who would stack on top of each other to reach food from high branches. Just sort of like matter of fact, but weird, slightly tweaked versions of, Earth life. You get the sense from in fact, he pretty much says explicitly that he's not super proud of these things in retrospect, that he's not proud of the writing, but the art here really stands up. So these things were only available in print, but it's neat to see this as kind of like an evolution of that idea and that kind of concept and work. It was that, this is something that he's toyed with forever. He does art of the natural world and animals, but in this imaginative way where he's always wanting to create new imaginative animals instead of just, this guy could be a Audubon or whatever, just drawing pictures of birds. And I'm sure he would draw incredible birds, but he would rather those birds have horns or, a weird symbiosis with slugs in their brains or whatever else. Right. So really cool to see the evolution of his style. It's also kind of cool to compare his earlier art, because he has a lot of it in this document or in this digital art book, and see how he adapted things to be able to do the game, because a lot of his earlier art has this sort of watercolor look that works really well for sort of natural settings. But you can see that he eventually kind of figured out and settled on this style where the backgrounds are this watercolor look, but he's doing ink or digital line art on top of that watercolor, which works really well for things like being able to have expressive characters like the whale. The whale has such an incredible eye, these like details in the whale's face in order to be able to get these like almost human-like expressions.
I know. I love this little whale.
I know. I love the little boy.
Big fan of the whale. And not the Brendan Fraser. I haven't seen the whale. But the whale.
No, pass on. I'm never going to see that.
I really want to protect this whale, man. This poor little guy.
I know.
He's having
what a
such
journey.
A hard time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool to see. And so I would say if you like this thing, and I loved it, don't be afraid to spend $15 on a PDF if it's supporting this artist. I think it's a great. I'm so glad that I did. I really enjoyed going through it, and now I'm also picking through it for art to put on my phone lock screen or whatever.
I was gonna say, yeah, it sounds like a perfect phone lock screen. A destination that any artist truly strives for, right?
That's the dream.
I've made it. Now I'm on Raygan's lock screen. I bumped his daughter off of his phone lock screen.
There definitely was a work event that I went to on Tuesday, and there were like 3 identical blue case type things, and someone was like, which one? And they bopped it. It was like child, dog, child, Zelda. And I was like, yes,
oh, no.
It is me. I am the one with the Zelda background. I was like, I have no pets or kids.
I love the artist's obvious sort of interest or maybe even obsession with the idea of symbiosis. It's all
Mhm.
over this game. Like the coral reefs are a symbiotic relationship. The whales are a symbiotic relationship. The whole thing is centered around these symbiotic relationships, and it makes sense that it's a cool sort of platform for interesting art, right? It's a whale, but it's also a garden. It's a whale, but it's also 100 octopuses. It's a really cool combo.
It's also really cool to be able to have such a curious, hopeful nature documentary where it seems like they don't like the way it's written, they don't know what they're going to see next. They're learning new things. Um, I it's important, but a lot of nature documentaries right now are bummers because they always end up and climate change is killing this adorable creature.
Yeah.
That's important. It is nice and refreshing to be like, and we have no idea what's going to happen to this whale. And oh, cool. He just went to someplace we've never been before. Like it's a completely different attitude towards the documentary that I found really vibrant and exciting.
That's true. It's kind of refreshing. It's like this is absolutely untouched nature on another planet, and this is presuming a future where human beings have gone to this beautiful untouched other planet and haven't wrecked it yet.
Mm-hmm. We haven't destroyed this yet.
And that's so, it is kind of hopeful to imagine, right? Like that there is a future in which humanity lands on other planets and our first thought isn't strip mining.
It's very Starfleet for those who are thinking of this as a big Starfleet. Voyage home reference. There's no references to that, by the way.
I think, a lot of nature documentaries are trying to educate you about something that the researchers and the creators know a lot about, right? This one is almost more like a band documentary where they, started with the band when it was really young and you just kind of go along the ride with them. They talk about the funding for the documentary. They talk about like, oh, it was too dark for our cameras to film this part, so we don't really know what happened during this part. Like you're there with the researchers rather than it just being an educational tool. And it's a really good lens for it. It adds this layer of intrigue, and the whole thing is, supposed to be completely new to everyone, and you're there with them instead of just being told about a bunch of stuff that everybody already knows about.
And I know Nate was earlier saying like, hey, this is just a bunch of still images, and it had, if you stop clicking, it stops moving. But like that disappeared for me, man. Like when I think back on the story of playing through this thing, like these fish are swimming in my mind. Like it does some things like, like little effects that have some motion to them. Things like you can see, like, I don't know, motes of krill moving through the sunbeams or whatever in certain frames. And it does some really nice effects to try to liven things up. There's also little animations, you might click and you see like a 3 or 4 frame animation of the whale swimming into a particular position or something. So there is motion to this thing, but also it just feels alive. It feels like it's moving even when it's not. So I don't know. I just wanted to make sure that you don't get the impression that this is just like flipping through your gallery on your phone. Like it feels so alive to me.
Yeah, there's definitely more than it's more than a Ken Burns. For sure, if that's what you're picturing. It's got a lot more. I like how unexpected it is. It changed scale. It would go between like a technical illustration to a really like a character shot, a close up. There's a lot of cool things they do with zooming in and out to make it feel almost like between an animatic and an animation. I really liked it. I think a lot of people in the comments are comparing this to like, what if Miyazaki liked the ocean? I think that's a good way to think about it.
I don't know. I'll take this over Ponyo any day. Ponyo's okay. Don't get me wrong. That's all right. Ponyo. It's just not
Justin has fallen
fave.
asleep during Ponyo 3 times, and we didn't finish the Miyazaki the Ghibli marathon because he fell asleep during Ponyo too much.
Ponyo is the sleepiest of all the Miyazaki movies, I think. It's I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that the artist decides to expand on this and create more stuff in this world. I want an actual like game. We really keep playing around.
How
with the word
dare
game,
you, Nate?
Yeah,
but
I
want
don't
a
want to
game.
gatekeep if this is a
No,
game, but like,
I want a game in this world where I get to do the story of this whale, but I get to like make choices and experience all the different adaptations and things like that. I want to make my own whale, basically. And I know that would require so much more effort and so much more work. So I hope this artist can springboard from this and make something awesome where I get to make my own whale. I think is ultimately what I want. I want my own whale.
Well, Nate, your only solution is going to be to buy some watercolors.
yeah.
Apparently.
Well, so here's the thing I keep. I will say before I get into this thing, I 100% think people should check this out. This is free. It's awesome. I loved it. I think I would liked it more if it was a passive experience and I didn't keep having to press the space bar. And I think that to me, the interactivity didn't add anything to my experience. I don't really care. Like, to me, this didn't. I don't care if it's a game or not. It didn't feel like a game. I would have liked it better had the game stuff been taken out, and I could have just absorbed it in my own. I think I would have been more
Just like a
immersed in this
short
really
film,
beautiful
or not even
story
short, just
as a film.
movie.
Like even and I don't even need more animation. Like as is, without the subtitles, with just the voiceover, and just been able to watch this, and maybe had the documentary bits that or the white text been just like cut or like fade and cut to a different thing. Like I think I would have liked it better. And I don't want to be a gatekeeper on what is there isn't a game, but to me, the visual novel part, I just didn't want to have to keep turning the pages.
I think I see what you mean. Like, and I kind of agree in that, like, I think this would make a great 1 hour TV thing and would be maybe accessible to people who aren't on Steam or itch.io looking for something to play. And instead, this, like, I think anybody could appreciate this, even if they would never consider opening up a visual novel. But that's it. Like, I think this was still a really smart approach for this artist who wanted to create this thing. Like, I'm sure he had a point where he had to make the choice between, do I make a short film using my art in this way? Do I make, I don't know, a website, an art book? Do I make a visual novel like this? And I am kind of glad he went with this set of tools and took this approach. I think it's a well chosen medium here, because first of all, like, if you were making that choice, do I go like the way that this artist did and make this in the visual novel tools versus do I make this as a short film? I think the expectation for it as a short film would have been more animation. It would have been a much larger production. It might not have been approachable as a hobby project for this guy who he clearly is aware of film. This guy, it seems like his day job, at least for a large part of his career, is working as a concept artist in film. So this is a guy who clearly knows film, and he still then chose to make this as a game or as and it's not even that, like, well, I thought I could get $15 out of people as a game versus $5 as a weird thing, movie or something. This is offered for free. So like this is a very specific choice in terms of medium that this guy made. And it's also interesting that he chose to make it as a visual novel, but then he discarded literally every visual novel convention that I can think of. It's fully voiced. Almost no visual novels are. It has no branching, no endings, no choices. Almost all visual novels I've ever played do. It has no game mechanics. Most visual novels have at least something or something along those lines. He's just chosen, in this case, it seems like RenPy, which is like a Python-based visual novel authoring tool. He's chosen that, I think, just because it gives him exactly the amount of control over the visuals that he wanted. And so I applaud the choice, and I really want to see more experimental visual novels. This is the most experimental I have seen a visual novel get. And I liked it so much more than many other visual novels I have played. Not to denigrate the medium. There's a lot of great stuff in it, but I'm just saying, like, this is such a beautiful short experience. And I don't think it would have been possible for a single person to produce this in any other medium.
I will reframe what I actually am asking for, and that is a button you can press that auto advances the text.
Fair enough. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think there is no problem with the amount of animation. Even subtitles on screen, I don't have a problem with. For me, it's just at times I would have liked to not have to advance the text because I really liked what I was seeing, and I didn't want that mechanical aspect interfering with that experience.
Yeah.
I kind of said it earlier, but I think it is a choice that allows you to move through the art at your own pace.
Mhm.
If you want to sit on a particular piece of art, you can. There's no additional work required. If it was a short film or not even just a film length film, you'd have to have your remote out pausing all the time if there was something that you wanted to stick with. And that's not like a normal film watching experience. And whereas this, you're taking the normal experience of having to interact with it to move it forward. And there were times where, the narrator's done. I like the voice. I mean, what's a game without a British accent narration at this point? You gotta have it. But there are sometimes
and
where
we
I'm
haven't talked about
let's go to the
incredible
next
sound
thing.
design. My God, the sound design is
Yeah.
so good, and you couldn't have done that in like, yeah. I mean, obviously,
all
you could have
using
done that in
free
film,
open
but-
source, all using open source sounds too. The credits at the end is like 4 pages of all the sounds that he used off of open source websites, which is cool.
Yeah, free sound or whatever. Yeah, incredible stuff. So I'm not sure what else there is to say about South Scrimshaw other than that. Like, I think this is something that if you have a device that can play a game downloaded off of Steam or itch, like this should be like absolutely like spend an evening with this thing. It's an incredible work of art. I loved every bit of it. And I'm still sitting here leafing through the art book and just staring at some of these. It's really nice if you like the sort of like breaking down a piece of art thing, because he's got a lot of the bigger illustrations presented with like, here's just the background, here's just the line art isolated here, kind of breaking down like his Photoshop layers basically, so you can see the process a little bit. And it's really cool, and you can see details that you might have missed if you were just playing through it at speed. So yeah, I'm such a fan of this thing. And what a gift for this artist to put this out for free.
I love the word Scrimshaw. I've always liked that word. It's a good word.
It's perfect for this because, I mean, as far as I can tell, like the only place that South Scrimshaw is referenced is there's a little bit of geography talk at one point where they're talking about like where the whales are raising their babies, and it is in a bay between 2 islands that the researchers have named like North Scrimshaw and South Scrimshaw, and never referenced again. Single momentary reference. But the word Scrimshaw is so good. It just evokes something about whales, right? Probably thinking of like Moby Dick or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's carving on whale tusks, whale cartilage, whale bones. And so it's a really cool remnant word where it sounds like the sea. It sounds like whaling, but you probably, unless you watch a lot of Antiques Roadshow, can't exactly put your finger on what Scrimshaw is, which is a great title.
I think I could go for more fake nature documentaries. I enjoy nature documentaries, but I also don't like them at the same. I don't like watching animals in peril, and that is such a
that's a huge proponent of most of the. They've recently started just doing ones about dinosaurs.
I haven't watched any of those. Have you? Because I know my kid would like them, but I'm a little worried about the peril aspect. I tried to get my kids to watch one of the Disney like penguin movie things. It's like a Disney nature documentary. It's on Disney Plus. And I was like, let's watch something other than goddamn cartoons for 10 minutes in our lives. And they watched that and they were kind of into it, but like there's even like mild peril for the penguins where they were being stalked by a seal, like put my like just traumatized my poor kids, and I felt terrible. So I want to show my kids these fake dinosaur documentaries, because I know they'd be super into seeing dinosaurs in almost any context. But I'm worried it's like, why did the T-Rex eat that poor baby? And
They look rad. There's a lot of eating of animals. I mean, there's just a lot of predators. If you are looking for a kid-friendly one, though, Tiny Worlds, which is inexplicably narrated by Paul Rudd, because they were like, Ant-Man should do the bug documentary.
Oh, that's fun.
And it's just about bugs, and they do a lot of like weird tilt shift stuff to make the bugs feel more playful, and there's a lot of goofy music. I found it very, very fun. But you can't, like, I was also like, this is for children.
Well,
Which you have. So
exactly what I need. I need more something like that to watch with my kids.
Yeah.
Although, even though I was saying like I don't like watching animals in barrels, so a fake nature documentary is my solution. Well, I still felt a lot of like tenseness in this one as our little whale friend went through standard animal peril situations too. So,
oh man, and the way the art style shifted during the shark attack sequence was really striking.
Yeah, dude, Tiny World is like, here's a dwarf mongoose. It's like little animals is the whole thing, and so they don't. I have not seen a single one of them die or be in peril, because it's
little
all about
animals
like
are
it's the little animals
edible.
that could.
Love it. That's what I like.
The first episode is a dung beetle too, and it's like, what's it rolling? It's poop.
Oh,
yeah.
There's nothing.
You sold me on that for my kids. My kids will love that. I'm
Yeah.
going to track that down. So anything last to say about South Scrimshaw?
It's
Otherwise,
gorgeous. It's free. Download it.
There's no reason not to check this out. You can engage
Absolutely.
in it really quickly, and I think you'll know within the first like 10 minutes or not whether this is for you. But I will say, I think it gets better and better from a story perspective. Like it kept me enthralled all the way to the end. I thought it was interesting, and the story just gets more and more interesting as you more fully understand this world. So if you're like hating it in the first 10 minutes, then it's probably not for you. But if you find yourself even like a little bit like, okay, I'm enjoying this, just see it all the way through. It's not that long, 86 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, totally. All right. Do we have a little time for what's making us happy this week?
Yes, we do.
Well then, Laura, what's making you happy this week?
So I am very excited because a artist I like, Matt Stevens, had a Kickstarter a while ago called Good Movies as Old Books. He had a project where he was illustrating like what if movie poster, but it's a cover that looks like a 1930s pulp book, or an old like 1800s like Boy Scout thing. Like all of these are in different styles. I got 3 prints, which actually you can see behind me. Well, you can't because I was blocking it with my mic. We have 3 prints and a copy of the volume 1, but he just said, I liked doing this so much. I've made enough for another book, and I am thrilled. It's been, I had a book of the first 50. There's now 50 more with new movies and old ones. The art is sometimes it's like a mid-century modern thing. I love, for example, the Mission Impossible one, which is very iconic. It is almost impossible to describe art on a podcast, but if you go to goodmoviesasoldbooks.com, you'll see the original books and prints. But I'm just kickstarted part 2. We're really excited to take our 3 photos to 6. There's a poster of all the old ones. Man, this art is just so rad. You might not, for me, a thing I love art, and I love concept art, and I love movies. And it is very hard sometimes because there's great art for a movie you don't like. And then there's a movie you love and the art is bad. And I think because I like this art, I like the style, I can just almost entirely like, we sat and we're like, let's pick 3 that go well together because there were so many things that I liked the art and I liked the movie that I could be picky. Thrilled that there's a whole new batch. I can't wait to put this up in my room. I can't wait to look at the book. His choices are all over the map. And I think it's like we have decided that our living room, because it doubles as like the projector room, we only put art up about like video games or movies. And so this is perfect. We have all the prints above our bookshelf to kind of tie the room together. Check it out. Very cool art.
Looks awesome.
I smashed that button. I was like, yes, take all of my money. I was like, how many prints can we buy? And Justin's like, please don't buy more than 3 more prints. We already have 3. I was like, we could rotate them. He's like, we're not going to do that. Please calm down. So I can buy the book. So I can, but if I had a library, I would be putting this up all over the library walls.
Well, that's awesome. I'll try to have a link in the show notes for folks who are curious, want to take a look themselves. Similarly, in the world of art, I will share, I have acquired another piece of art for my collection this week. And I'm going to do the terrible podcaster thing of just showing this to my
Raygan is
co-hosts.
reaching over his desk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to explain this, but I'll show it to my co-hosts. I have completed the set I've gotten.
Oh no, art. We're using art
these.
very liberally this episode.
We certainly are. So listeners, I'll explain. I have a collection. I think maybe my pitch to you, listener, is if you have the collecting shit in your life can be a pain in the ass. Don't start a dumb collection. But also, if you do start a collection, make it super specific and ultra dumb so that it doesn't take up too much space, but it gives you a laugh every time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a small but pretty comprehensive collection of merchandise from the 1980s where Garfield is using a computer. And that's a pretty specific niche. And so my eBay saved searches don't pay dividends all that often.
That's why I love you, Raygan.
But occasionally they do. And for a long while, actually, this one came in. This was a gift from Shane. So Shane bought me, knowing this was my thing, bought me this beautiful 1981 Enesco porcelain figure of Garfield smashing a 1980s CRT atop a desktop computer type of thing with the caption in very 80s computery font, "Compute this, sucker." And for a long while, I didn't know that it had a companion piece, which is of Odie, the odious devil Odie, using his computer without smashing it, looking very smug with the caption, "I like my computer," because of course he's an idiot. And so now that I have a matched set of these, my life is complete. And I will post some photos if you're curious, if you're a listener and you want photos of all the other 80s computer garfs in my collection. I have quite a lot, and I am always happy to share. So, but yeah, this was my latest acquisition, and as far as I know, the only other Garfield computer porcelain figurine that was available on the market in the 1970s or 80s.
It's incredibly specific.
Yes. Yeah. Nate, what's making you happy this week?
Well, how do I follow something like that, Raygan? I mean, it's truly incredible. You're a collector among collectors.
I am a true iconoclast.
It's true. It is. I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you. It's truly incredible what you've shown on your screen. I'm just thinking a quick little round robin of it's not round robin of It's Just Me. A quick little rundown of some games that I've been playing that I've been enjoying. Most of which I've been talking about on this show already, but Molly and I have nearly completed Nobody Saves the World. It's a game by Drinkbox Studios. I talked about it like 3 months ago on this show. It's we've been playing it couch co-op. It stays awesome all the way until the end. I do think like it's probably a little too long, but still it's amazing. If you remember, you're unlocking new forms. It's like a dungeon crawling beat 'em up type of game, and the interesting sort of mechanic is that you can basically piece together all of the different forms and create your own play style. And as you get further and further, you've ultimately unlocked something like 16, maybe more different forms, each with their own unique abilities. You can combine and make your own thing. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. if you haven't played it. Drinkbox continues to do no wrong. So check that game out. I'm somewhere, I think, around halfway done with what I will call my experience with Tears of the Kingdom. I am not a 100% type of person. I'm getting closer and closer to just saying, all right, I just need to finish this game because I'm going to spend the rest of my life playing this game. So, Shane and I did that episode a month ago or so about it, and I'm still loving it, but it is like totally the antithesis of what we're doing on this show. And at some point I have to end it. But Laura, you're playing it now, right?
I am playing it now, and Justin's playing it. I don't know if you remember, but he played Breath of the Wild without fast travel.
Right.
Wow,
And he's doing that again with Tears of the Kingdom, except the issue is when you go in the depths, you have to get out. So his rule in the depths is that you can only you can teleport up if you have both the shrine on top and the thing on bottom active. I'm trying to be vague for the two people who haven't played this game. So he basically is trying to like simul dive in two worlds at once. It is dire. It is like he will be in the depths for days. But
tell him I think it's bullshit and he should have to carry around a hot air balloon and ample batteries because he could get out of there if he if he carried around all the stuff.
Yeah, but he's still doing no fast travel in this. It made it a little easier by the fact that you inherit your old horses. But he continues to. He's not doing what he did in Breath of the Wild, which was not doing fast travel and writing a journal as if he were Link going through during a travel journal.
See, I love that. That's great.
Which was exquisite.
That is an equally insane thing as collecting Garfield using a computer figurines from the 80s, and I love it.
Yes, I think he has too many people to manage at work to write a journal for Tears of the Kingdom, but he's still keeping his no fast travel rule. So we are having drastically different life experiences in Tears of the Kingdom, both enjoying it. He is sad when he comes home and he's like, why are the controllers dead? And I'm like, because I was using Ring Fit. And he's like, but I need to play on the dock. But, we're balancing.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Molly and I are doing the same thing where we're sharing a single Switch trying to play through the game. And we have recently unlocked a critical new understanding is that our kids love watching us play Zelda.
So you could do it during the day now.
Oh yeah, it's unlocked a whole new avenue of Zelda playing, and it has significantly ramped up our completion rates. Although it is slightly annoying, but
he is a full dungeon or full temple ahead of me, so he also enjoys watching me play, which is helping me play more.
But that could also mean nothing because you could be like 100 hours in this game and never done a single temple. So it depends on how you're progressing. But yeah, I got to end it at some point. Like I want Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to start soon. Starfield. It's a horrible time for a short game podcast, but
man, Baldur's Gate is already cutting into everything I do for this show. We may have to take a month off while I finish Baldur's Gate.
I am excited about Starfield too. I
don't even bring it up.
Laura just goes on and starts talking about whatever she wants. I'm just like, hi. What did I do this week? Everybody else is playing Baldur's Gate and I refuse. I cannot.
Well, I'm not going to say much about it, but the third game I was going to say is that I have started playing Dredge. Everyone's talking about Dredge. We're a little behind on it, but we're all going to start playing Dredge, we believe. So
I think what we'll probably do, and don't quote me on this, but what we'll probably do is next week we might do another one of our topic-based episodes to give us a little padding time to really explore Dredge. This seems to be a meatier game than we typically play, so I want to make sure we have time to really properly check it out. But yeah, we'll be coming back with that soon, hopefully. And then question marks. So if you, listener, have any suggestions on games that we should be covering on the show that aren't Baldur's Gate 3, ideally ones that I can fit in between sessions of Baldur's Gate 3 while I do that, let me know. I've been fully infected by the Mind Flayer brainworm and can't stop playing Baldur's Gate 3. So Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the show. You can find us on the internet at shortgame.fm. That's the website where you can find all the good stuff. We got links and buttons to everything that we do, all of our socials, links to our podcast on all the various different platforms. And most importantly, a link to our Patreon, patreon.com/theshortgame, which is where you, listener, can support the show. We've had some really kind new supporters recently. Thank you so much for supporting the show. It means a lot to us, and it lets us do things like buy new or replace equipment. When a show goes for 10 years, I guarantee you microphones do wear out. You have to replace them. We've been having to do a little bit of that. Things like that. It helps a lot. It also helps pay for the hosting that gets this show to you. It helps us occasionally buy games, which helps us, offset the costs. This is not a big commercial going concern. We do very occasionally get review codes, but most of the games you hear us talk about on this show have been bought 4 times by the hosts. So keep that in mind and think about how many indie games your support will buy. Let's see. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And let's see, you can find me on Mastodon, mostly at Raygan, Raygan, at bird.rodeo. And Laura, where can people find you?
You can find me basically not active anywhere, but you can alert me on X at Laura J. Nash or at Laura J. Nash at bird.rodeo if you are on Mastodon. But mostly Discord if you're a patron.
Yep, that's the best place to contact any of us. And Nate, where can people find you?
Yeah, definitely echo both the love for Discord and also that it is really the best. That's where I am most active by a mile. But you can find me on the other socials, Nate STL on X and Nate STL at bird.rodeo, which on Mastodon, which I have always laughed at bird.rodeo, but it's far better than saying at X now. So
100%.
So I'm coming back around on Mastodon.
See, my branding skills, they don't look so bad now. Thank you once again, listeners, and we'll catch you next week on another episode of The Short Game.